They are divorced. Since I was 2, I believe. I think it was 2 or 3. And I don't remember the divorce at all. But I do remember the after effect of the divorce. Well, I have a mom and a dad and a stepmom and a stepdad.
Two daughters, Melissa and Elizabeth. I have since been remarried to Gail, who had 2 sons, Mark and Scott, who has 2 sons, Mark and Scott, and we had a family together.
I do. I do have a family. I have my 2 daughters, Melissa and Elizabeth, and I'm remarried, so I have a stepson, Tommy, and I have a daughter-in-law, it's Amy. I have 2 wonderful grandchildren, Mikey and Tommy.
The divorce didn't upset me at all because I grew up that way. So it was normal to me. I mean, I didn't see nothing wrong with it, and I don't know, it was fine to me. It seemed normal. It just seemed like a normal kid would have a divorced parents.
The point Connie and I were divorced, Melissa was 6 and Elizabeth was 2. I really don't remember specifically telling them the issue other than questions about why we were going to my house versus at mom's house and whatnot. 'Cause the kids were pretty young at that time, so it wasn't a topic of conversation that we could have an adult type conversation with. So just told them we were living apart and I was living where I was living and mom was living where she was living. So
They were very young when their dad and I divorced, so no, they kind of accepted it, and that was their way of life, and you know.
It was different though when it came to it's very tension when my parents got together. I saw that, but most of the time they were fine. They were around each other. But so that's the biggest thing when I was younger. And then when I got older, it was more of the fact that who they married I'd have to get used to that, and getting along, having to share a relationship with my parents with somebody else. That was pretty difficult. That was probably the hardest part. You have to share love. I think that's really hard. I don't like going into detail. I know, but it's hard.
And then when we took on, when we both remarried, to let them know that, our spouses are going to be there right now. You have an extended family now. It goes further on than just mommy and daddy, but we all would go to the games, and so they had more people to love them. And so just to let them know that, no matter what, that they were going to be taken care of and loved.
I remember my dad living by himself. I don't ever remember my mom living by herself. But I know that they remarried around the same time.
I can't say they really reacted to the divorce, but certainly to the living situations. So I was living in an apartment with just the 1 bed for the 2 of them, so they were more reactive to the environment situation and my lack of cooking and those kind of things, though they like McDonald's, so that was okay.
And it was difficult, more towards my adolescence years than when I was young. I was more upset because my sister was upset because she was older and she, knew more about it than me. Once they divorced, I think it went separate ways. Different characters and everything. I don't even know how they were married. Well, my mom was a teacher and my dad was an engineer, and he was pretty high up in an engineer spot, I think, and so he had to go travel a lot. That was another big issue. He'd travel all the time. So between having to be between his new wife and between his work, there's really no time, and we only seen him sometimes. So most of the time we were over there, either he was stressed or he was doing something or he's yard work to do, which we won't even get into the yard work situation, which I'm always the one who had to mow the lawn, but that's okay. Well, how it worked was I was at my mom's house during the week. I went to school around here, like around my mom's house. I only went on my dad's on Tuesdays, every other Tuesdays, and every other weekend. Yeah. And so it became like kind of like I was in a boot camp. My dad would give me calendars to show like when days I should be there, and that was really good. But now that's a big side effect of me. Like I have to have things planned out for me. So that's really big, I think, in my life. Like I have to stop like being like, what am I gonna do this weekend? You know, because my dad used to always have stuff. We'd have to be there during the weekend, and we'd have to know like what we have planned for the weekend, you know, and all that, and like way ahead of time. So I see that rubbed off on me. But yeah, so we would go over there on every other weekend and Tuesday. And that was pretty hard because then we tried doing stuff like while we saw him because we didn't see him that much. And if there was a dance, then that, you know, screwed up everything. So it was difficult. Like I understand, I see why like he was stressed out, and you know maybe why I'd only seen like maybe that side of him because I only was with him not so much. But I think I consider this more home. So that's why I really preferred this environment.
The girls growing up was stressful at times because there was a lot of passing back and forth. So there was a lot of transition, staying at my house, staying at their mom's house. So I think the transition was more of a toll of having to go back and forth and not having a regular routine in one house where they kept sleeping in the same bed constantly. It was always back and forth. So there was a lot of transition, a lot of moving. A lot of adjustments of schedules and changing of schedules. So I worked a lot and I traveled when I worked. So there wasn't even a set routine within the routine. So I would, because of my travel, there was a lot of long periods of time, long by a few days, or maybe even a week of separation. So I think that was, and then getting back into the routine of going back and forth again was an issue. But we worked through it.
Like going over his house and then going to my mom's, it was like I was two different people at one point. So it's very weird.
So they adjusted to it well. As they got older, it was harder because, you know, they had their friends that they went to school with, and their friends would have parties and everything. And, you know, if it was their time to be with their dad that weekend and their friend was having a party, you know, they wanted to be there.
If I didn't want to go, that was bad. Bad situation. I didn't want to go a lot. I remember that. And I remember that when I felt that way, it was even worse because then I knew I had to go. But sometimes, like, I'd say I was sick. And I get to stay home. But sometimes I like going over there because I have brothers over there, and like we did have fun.